evening, and welcome back to the channel. So as you can see, that I had put up a couple of posts about the awesome kit that I bought from PAI Industries, and the kit uh, is a total complete overhaul kit. Excuse me for the belching, just got to eat some pizza. But the kit is a total overhaul kit, and it was several kits that I was looking at, and it wasn't anything about price. It was about quality. It was about quality. It was about the things that were in the kit. Um, had I used one of those kits before? Because I've been doing this for a long time, and the last engine that I rebuilt was my Cummins. I had a big Cam 4 Cummins, 400 horsepower that I had rebuilt, and I bought a kit for it, and it was a really good kit. Um, it had some coated pistons in it, but they were just coated on the skirts. It wasn't the whole piston like these here in this PAI kit that I'm doing my 14 liter 12 7 with. So when I went online and I was looking at the kits, the different kits, and like I say, I was just looking from a standpoint of longevity, performance, and I was like, this engine has on the odometer, it shows 1 million miles on the odometer, a million miles, a little over 1 million miles. Um, on the ECM, it shows about 200,000 miles short of that. It shows like right at 800 and some thousand. So either way, uh, the engine had a bunch of miles on it. And what led to the rebuild was that the oil consumption. It had got to a point where I was consuming oil. Usually, you won't lose any oil between engine oil changes. Some people change them at 10,000. Some people go 12. Some people go 15. Everybody has their own thing. Whatever you do, that's what you do. But I usually go every 10,000 miles. And so that usually gets me probably little over 2 months, 2 months, every month and a half, maybe sometime I'll stretch it 2 months, but it's whenever it hit the 10, 12,000 mile mark, I'll change it. So what happened was, if you've been following the channel, you know that I'd bought an aftermarket turbo, put on the truck, and that didn't, I mean, it worked all right, but it didn't work so good. Um, but in saying all of that, I had an oil consumption problem. I got where I was using maybe a half a gallon to a gallon of oil uh, every week with the truck. And I had a few leaks, and I had the leaks, the rear main, the back structure of the engine took took down, and new rear main seal, and on the Detroit they just have this gasket make stuff that you put back there, and did all that, and make sure wasn't nothing leaking back there, and got all those leaks fixed, all pan gasket, all that. And truck was running okay, had always ran okay. Um, then it started the oil consumption. It started using a gallon of oil, a half a gallon to a gallon of oil a week, and that's a lot. That's a lot. And so I couldn't never find where the oil was going. And I said, I know I'm blowing it out the exhaust because I've been doing this for a long time. I said, it's more than likely when I'm running the engine, preferably idling the engine, it's going out the pipe. So I knew from time to time I would get a little haze out of it when I was idling the engine. you know. And so I kind of said, well, it's got, a few miles on it. Now is I need to start preparing myself that I'm going to have to have the engine overhaul because of the oil consumption. So went past that, I ended up having to put a turbo on it. And while I had the turbo put on it, new charge air cooler, because the turbo one went out on me. And new turbo, charge air cooler, exhaust manifold. I put a V part on it. I put the, if you're familiar with Detroit's, it's what controls the boost in the 14-liter 60 series. It's called a V port, but it's a pressure. It's a numeric pressure switch, and what it does is it controls the boost. It controls the boost on the turbo. It controls the wastegate. Is what it does. It sends air and takes air from the wastegate, and it also, works in conjunction with the EGR. So I put a new EGR cooler on it and all that. Just did everything to the truck, and so the truck was running okay, but I knew I needed to get an overhaul on it. So after I bought this truck here, I was like, okay, well, this is the time that I need to do an overhaul on the truck. I was like, I'm not gonna sell the truck. I've had the rear ends rebuilt in it, transmission's been rebuilt in it, complete cooling system, all that stuff has been done to the truck. And so I'm like, it's a great truck. It does the job well. It's just got some miles on it, and it's time for engine overhaul. So I at that point, I started to look at what parts were available. And this is pre-COVID. And so you could still get parts. Little delay, a few weeks to a month. And so with that being said, I started to think about a performance rebuild on the truck. And so I started looking at I started looking at places that I've watched before, PDI and several other builders and vendors that supply components for pulling for the outlet pulling diesel engines. What do they use? And I started to dive into that because whenever I'm doing something, I'm always going to look ahead of what the stock component is. I'm always going to look for a better replacement. And so if you remember this one thing right here, is that when you're changing something, take your time and do research, whether it be a engine, a crankshaft, a bearing for the crankshaft, a bearing for the rod, a rod itself, a piston itself, a ring itself, anything that you're going to change. Look and see if you can make it better, and what is the cost of it and your intended use. So I know that in that truck, I don't have an APU on it, which is a auxiliary power unit, which means I could have air conditioning heat when the diesel engine that powers the truck is off. I know I do a lot of idling with the truck. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna need something that's gonna have a tighter tolerances so that I won't have the blow by and I won't have the slobbering and all that. Because in the slobbering, you will notice that in the diesel engines, more so the older ones, the engine that wasn't electronic or computer controlled, because when they're idling at night, you can look out and you'll see like blue haze coming out the stacks. Well, that's oil. That's oil that's being burnt from the engine, because one, the engine is idling, and you should always idle a diesel engine anywhere from 7 to 800 RPM. When you're sitting there idling and you're not driving the truck, bump your, bump your, if you can, bump your cruise, I mean your engine idle up 700 to 800 RPM. If you got an older truck, find you one of those little rods with the little thing on it, and idle it up as well. You know, idle up by 700 RPM, and because the rings are spinning in the engine, at some point they're gonna spin. I don't care how you put them in there. At some point, those rings, they move. They don't stay in the same place. They move. And what happens is, over a period of time, and I'm telling you the truth about this, over a period of time, the rings will get what people say, they'll line up. They'll line up. And all of the cylinders, whether it's, no matter how many of them it is, whether it's a inline six, a V8 or whatever, you get one or two pistons that happens to, and there's your oil consumption. There's your oil consumption right there. And sometimes you're able to bring the engine up 700-800 RPM, and sometimes it'll, you know, once it gets hot and everything, the rings will expand and it'll stop the smoking. But you know, that's the first sign that you're gonna need an overhaul that. And like I say, the older engines, the old Cumminses, the old Cats, all of the mechanical engines, I can remember, because I've been doing this over 36 years. And so I can remember the trucks that I had prior to these newer trucks. When they were running at night, oh, it wouldn't be enough for you to step out of the truck and see your exhaust, to see blue smoke coming out your exhaust. That was just part of it. That was the way the engines were designed. That's later on they started to make better, have closer tolerances between the liner and the piston and the rings. They had low friction rings and all that. So getting back to what the topic is, when I was looking for stuff for the engine, I went talked to my mechanic, because I had them wrote down what I wanted, and I know that I have Teflon coated pistons in both of my big block Chevrolets, and I know that the tolerance on them is real tight to the cylinder, and I know I don't have any blow by, any stuff like that. And I put those engines together a good while ago, and I don't have any miles on them. I don't, you know, I'm such a workaholic that I don't get a chance to drive them like I should. So after looking at that and talking to my mechanic, he recommended, he said, it's a kit, let me show you the box. And so he showed me the box, and it was PAI, and it had a Black Panther on it. He said, I used this kit a couple of times, and it's a really good kit. He said, if you're gonna do something, I would use that kit. So the kit that he had, it was for a 12.7, which is a smaller displacement engine than my 14 liter, but it's still basically the same engine. It's a 60 series. I just have the larger 60 series. So when I got online, got to looking, I started looking at the kits, and lo and behold, here goes a kit they offer for the 14 liter 60 series EGR. Remember, that's important. 14 liter is an EGR engine. It has an exhaust gas recirculation valve on it. Don't have it on the 12.7, but it is on the 14 liter 60 series. And the turbo is the EGR turbo as well. Remember that. So they do make a 14 liter that doesn't have an EGR on it. They do make one that's I think it's a 2000 or 2002, something like that. But you can get the manifold, and you could put the turbo on it that doesn't have the EGR. So anyway, I look at this kit, and I'm seeing the kit, and I'm shocked, because I'm like, this kit is showing that it has Teflon coated pistons. And from being a guy that used to do a lot of hot rod and still does it now, a lot of racing, a lot of engine building, spirited driving, I was like, wow, that Teflon will really help with the tolerance in the liner, which means that it will be tighter, it will make more power, the engine will run cooler because the rings in the kit don't have a lot of tension on them, so it's going to be less drag when the engine is turning. So all that's a plus. So I was like, wow. So I gave the distributor a call and we got to talking back and forth, and he said, yes, that kit does come with it's a new kit, and it does come with ceramic coated pistons. And I was like, wow. I was like, I know that the Caterpillars, most of the 6NZs, when you build them up to 700 horsepower and 800, 900,000 horsepower, I know that they do a lot of that with the coated skirts on the pistons, because it could deal with, it reduces the piston slap, which is side to side movement of the piston in the liner. It reduces that, and it helps them with the temperature when they're making power, because the coated piston doesn't expand as fast in the cylinder as a uncoated piston. And so you're able to put more air and more fuel, thus you can make more power because it can take, it doesn't generate as much heat as a OEM type piston that's non-coated. So I says, well, my engine's pretty hot. It's pretty hot. It's about 600 horse and about 2,000 pounds for the torque. So that's pretty hot for Detroit, 14 liter. And so I shopped around a little bit more, compared some more kits. And S&S, which is Stewart and Stevenson, they had a kit, same price as this kit, but it didn't offer the ceramic coated pistons. It didn't order it. It wasn't something you could order. And I even looked at some marine applications for the 60 series, the 14 liter. And I didn't see anything that really compared to this kit here. So I said, well, okay, I'm on the marine side because historically, when you're building an engine, it's two ways you want to go. Caterpillar, on a Caterpillar engine, you're going to go industrial or agricultural. And the reason why you do that, because those engines generally have a higher horsepower rating. They usually have a higher fuel consumption rating and generally make more power. Now, given that you will have to change the nozzles and camshafts like that, just like any performance build, whether it be gas or diesel, you have to change the camshaft, have to change the amount of fuel that the engine gets, and you have to increase the amount of air that the engine gets. And you have to, on a diesel, you have to either retard or advance the timing depending on the compression in the cylinder. So, yeah, just like a car. So, with that being said, Detroit Diesel does offer kits for industrial, which what they do, they use them in marine application. You want something for Detroit that's a little hot rod, you can go to the marine, because they've been using this engine, the 60 series, quite a while in boats, whether it be tug boats or whatever. They do a lot of work with the boats. So does Caterpillar, and so does Cummins. All of them pretty much, have the same thing. They'll either be industrial, which is off-road. There'll be automotive, which will be big trucks, buses, and stuff like that. And then they'll have marine. So you can find and mix and match parts on any of them to get it. But the marine application for the 14 liter, it didn't have the coated pistons. So I ended up buying that kit that I talked to the guy about. I got the kit, got it there, man, bust the kit open. There's those beautiful Teflon coated pistons. And I sent a short. I got a short on my channel showing the pistons. And so I was like, wow, the tolerance of those things, I put them in there and to my like, man, the tolerance of those things, and I was just thinking like from a performance standpoint, that coatings are gonna help it really, that coating's gonna help it really to make more power, but the heat is gonna be a lot lower. The EGTs are gonna be a lot lower because the piston is coated. So I was like, man, that's a good deal. So needless to say, I bought it. So I'm just waiting. I can't wait to get back home and see what they've done to it, because it generally takes a week and a half, you know, the way everything is post-COVID, to get your cylinder head rebuilt and things like that, because I'm getting my cylinder head rebuilt. I'm not going to buy a aftermarket head or a reman head. There was nothing wrong with mine. It wasn't cracked. So I'm going to get mine totally rebuilt, new valves, new seats, new guides, all of that. Because they're asking like right at $5,000 for reman head, $3,500 for the head, $1,500 for the core, for the core. And this is a reman head. It's not a brand new head. This is a reman head. So I'm like, no, I'm not going to pay $5,000 for a reman head and have to give them my head. They're going to send it off. And then once they check it and make sure the head's okay, then they'll send me back the $1,500. I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that at all. That's not a good business move. What I'm going to do is, I know my head wasn't cracked. Know what's wrong with my head. I'm going to send my head off, get everything done to it, the injector tubes, get new valves, new guides, new seats, springs, everything like that, and get it all back. And then when they get it back, they put it on there. Hey, just like you do any other thing, make sure the valves are good. You know, everything's good. Seat, everything is perfectly flat and everything. The blocks counterboard, where it's got whatever it is, 2,000s or 4,000, whatever they building the liner hike up to, all that's done. And so that thing will be ready to do what it's got to do. So if you just wanted to kind of give you all a little bit of innuendo of thinking that when you building an engine, it doesn't matter if it's gas or diesel. It doesn't matter if it's your farm equipment, your on the road vehicle, or something you put out in the ocean or in the lake, anything like that. You can always make improvements to it, and that's what I've done. And I can't wait to show you all when I get back how far they've came, and when they get finished with it, how good it's gonna run. I can't wait. I'm so excited. If you haven't done so, please subscribe, like, share, comment, and let me know if you've had a similar experience with, no matter if it's a Cat, a Detroit, or a Cummins, doesn't matter, or a Mac. Just let me know. And what did you use, and how did it turn out for you? Thanks again for your continued viewing, your support. To all my old and current subscribers, thanks for it. Got to get more content out there for you. Been rather busy. We're doing a lot of stuff in my business, but I'm going to get more stuff out to you. To my new subscribers, thanks for choosing the channel. I guarantee you won't be disappointed, and I'll get at you on the next one.